Let me say good morning, everyone. My name is Jerry Shockey. I oversee all the youth and educational programs here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and we're extremely excited to offer you our Heart of the Hall of Famer series, an installment that we do about 20 to 25 times a year with our Hall of Famers, almost on a weekly basis. So we're really excited to bring to you Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Curley Culp, and I'll get to his introduction in just a moment, but we have, Mountain Gap is kind of new to this, at least this year, and some of the other schools that are tuned in as well, we kind of new to this. The real idea and premise behind this series is to convey exactly what it took to get in the Hall of Fame beyond just the athletic ability. And some of you that have done this before, you hear me say it over and over again, we know our Hall of Famers are awesome examples of skill and athleticism and talent, but there's a lot of people in this world that have a lot of skill, talent, and athleticism, but you don't see their bronze bust residing in here. And the reason being is it took a lot more than that. It took the character qualities, the 6 pillars that you guys are studying, the trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, citizenship. It took those character qualities and a whole lot more to make it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I've got a secret for you guys, and I don't think it's really a secret, but these aren't character qualities to be in a Hall of Fame football player. These are character qualities to be in a Hall of Famer in everyday life, whether it's being the very best students in your class, whether it's being the very best athletes, whether it's being the very best brother or sister, the very best citizen of your community, the very best group member of your Boy Scout or church group, or whoever you're involved with. These are the character qualities that are going to allow you to achieve success throughout your life. And Mr. Culp is an example of someone who, obviously, as we know, with the Pro Football Hall of Fame status, has achieved a lot on the field. But as you'll hear from his bio that I'm going to read to you, he's achieved just as much, if not more, off the field. So we're excited to give you the opportunity to speak with Mr. Culp and ask him questions about what obstacles he faced and what adversity and what recommendations does he have for young people and all those sorts of stuff. So we're excited to get to those in just a moment. But what I'd like to do is, first of all, being that it's a team sport, pro football, and we promote the positive values of the sport here. It's part of our mission statement at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It took a team to put this together. So we first and foremost need to thank our friends at Manor ISD. Manor High School. I know you guys opened your doors to Mr. Culp there today. Angela Matthews, she's the Chief Technology Officer there for the school district. Angela, thank you for working through this with me over the past couple of months and testing again and testing one more time just to be safe and all those sorts of things. So thank you, Manor ISD, for opening your doors to Mr. Culp here today. We have to thank the teachers, obviously, from all the school districts for making the connection possible, because you're the ones that pulled your students out of class. You're the ones that did the prep work and things like that. So thank you, teachers, for that. And then we're going to thank the students. You guys are the real stars of the show here today. I know Mr. Culp has a handful of students in front of him, and we also have our students from Alabama. We have some folks from up in Cleveland who are going to be view only here today as well that are tuned in, and then we're waiting for our Canton City schools still to get connected in. But we'd like to thank all of you for connecting in here today. And what I'd like to do is give you guys an opportunity to recognize yourselves by giving a little cheer, if you will. So my apologies to Penny there in Alabama and Mr. Culp. Plug your ears here for just a second, because I'm going to have your students give a shout out just here in a second. Students at Manor High School, if you want to go ahead and give a shout out just so we can hear you. All right, not bad. I'm going to guess that my friends at Huntsville, Alabama, Mountain Gap, you guys want to unmute there and give a shout out? Wow. My guess is correct. So thank you very much. And I know we still haven't got Crenshaw, the Altitude Academy in Canton connected. Just so you guys know, if you see me looking at my phone throughout the broadcast, I'm not being rude. I stay in constant communication with the sites that are tuning in. They communicate by email to make sure audio, video, and making sure they're getting connected. So just so you know, if you see me pick up my phone throughout the broadcast, it's not like I'm, checking my Facebook account or something like that. So with that being said, what I would like to do is get to the introduction of our featured speaker here today. And that's Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Curley Culp. First of all, he was selected in the second round. He was the 31st pick overall in the 1968 draft by the Denver Broncos. He was traded during training camp. So obviously an early sign into his character, being traded at an early time. Became a key member of the Kansas City Chiefs defense that later went on to win Super Bowl IV. And some will argue that, we might not get into it today because of the AFC or AFL NFL rivalry. Some might argue that that second Super Bowl that the AFL won was probably the most important one because it really said that the AFL can compete against the NFL as they were merging. So he was an anchor of that defense. He was a leader. Again, you hear that word leader. He was a leader of the 1975 Oilers to help the team to its first winning season in 8 seasons and second in 13. He was named the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year and first team All-Pro in 1975. He was first or second team All-AFC 5 times, and he was elected to 6 Pro Bowls. And then last year in 2013, he was bestowed with the greatest honor that an individual player can receive, and that's having his bronze bust here being enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Now, that's a little bit of his on the field. Let's go to his off the field, because what I think you'll find is it's just as remarkable as well. Curley, Mr. Culp has owned and operated 2 successful companies. He also earned a Master's of Education degree in Health and Human Performance from the University of Houston in 1989, so obviously someone who's placed a high importance on education. And he attended the University of Texas at Austin in the Community College Leadership Program. So there's that word coming up again about Mr. Culp, leadership, from 1992 to 1995. He continues to lend his time and efforts. Now listen to this as we talk about caring and citizenship. Various community service activities locally and nationally, participating in events for children with special needs, prostate cancer screening, the American Lung Association, and the Houston Charities. He's now enjoying the fruits of his labors and living in a suburb outside of Austin, Texas. Mr. Culp now spends his time with his family, Colette, his wife, his sons, Christopher, and Chad. And before we go and ask Mr. Culp for his opening remarks, what I'd like to do is share with you a quick video of some highlights from his career.
Curley Culp burst on the NFL scene in 1968 as a defensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. Relentless against both the run and pass, Culp anchored the Chiefs' defensive line for 7 seasons and was a key player on their Super Bowl IV championship team. In 1974, a blockbuster trade sent him to Houston, where he became the centerpiece of a defensive revival that saw the Oilers reach the AFC Championship in 1978 and 79. After 14 seasons and 6 Pro Bowls, Culp called it a career in 1980. He remains one of the most dominant defensive tackles of his era.
Okay, if all of you want to unmute your microphones for a second and join me in giving a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Curley Culp.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yours, sir.
Oh, I'm on? Okay. Thank you very much for that applause. I'm very happy and pleased to be here to take part in this process. You know, we're here to talk about character and how character can be developed within an athletic setting. And I think that character can be developed in an athletic setting, but only if it's structured and planned in a way that it's goal-orientated to reach that conclusion. I think that there's a traditional body of thought that athletics tend to create good character, and mainly because as an athlete, you have certain responsibilities that you need to do in order to compete on the football field. And through that ability of excellence, I think your teammates have a tendency to respect you because of your excellence. And through that excellence, they respect you and they trust you. And then an element of fairness comes into play in how you carry out those responsibilities. In the sense that, say, for instance, offensive lineman is going to block me, and he has to block me out of the way so that the running back can hit the hole and, make some yardage. So in the process of doing that, if those responsibility execution is such that he chopped my legs out from under me or hit me from the blind side, then that wouldn't be considered fair, I wouldn't think, because it's outside the lines of the rules of the game. Also, when you think about winning, everybody wants to win. And if you analyze what's important, winning versus character. And I don't know I don't know what you always say, but I think character should take precedence over winning, mainly because it gives you an opportunity to do the things that are right. And you talked about that probably in your study materials, and Jerry talked about this about thinking about trustworthiness, respect, responsibilities, fairness, caring, and citizenship. And these are all characters I think that can be built and learned within an athletic setting. And in closing, I just like to say that when you think about football in general as a team sport, it's always important to do your best, regardless of what you do on the football field. Do your best to maintain that excellence that I talked about earlier. And in that process, if everybody on the team, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, they all maximize their mental abilities as well as their athletic abilities, usually the outcome of the game would be one that everybody would be able to accept. However, if they lose the game, I think the prevailing consolation attitude should be that, well, we just got beat by a better team. That happens. You get beat by a better team. So what happens is, as a team, you go back to the drawing board and say, well, look at the film and see where you made mistakes and then try to correct those mistakes. Like in life, I mean, as humans, we will make mistakes. And I think you should learn from those mistakes so you don't make those mistakes again. And that's basically my comments for the introductory portion of this program.
Okay, thank you very much. And yeah, to echo some of his points, I even look at this year's Super Bowl, and you look at someone like, the Denver Broncos, who were well prepared and came in just as prepared as the Seahawks, but they just got beat by a better team. Sometimes it just happens that way, I'm sure, Peyton Manning and the rest of the team, they're going to go back, and now that Peyton Manning looks like he's going to play next year since he got cleared through his physicals and everything. It's gonna build them up next year. They're gonna go back, look and see what they have to improve. I mean, if they're the better team, then what do they have to do to make themselves better so they can beat the Seahawks or whoever it is next year? So obviously, football teaches a lot of life lessons in that regard about picking yourself back up and learning from the past, but forgetting it as well and moving on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go again, Manor High School and Mountain Gap. I still haven't heard from Altitude Academy yet in Canton, so I'm not sure. I'm going to try and give them a call in between questions and see if we can get them tuned in. Maybe they're having some technical issues, but we're going to start with the students there at Manor High School. If you want to go ahead and start with the first question of the program, and make sure you speak up loudly. That way I can hear you, and the other schools can hear you as well.
Hi, my name is Montanique, and my question is, what advice would you give any student athlete trying to make it where you made it?
Well, that's a great question. I think that if you utilize the characteristics we talked about earlier, the 6 pillars, and try to apply those 6 pillars in your life and obtaining good character, I think anyone would have an opportunity to be successful regardless of your chosen field of profession.
Great, thank you very much. And let's go to Mountain Gap in Alabama. We're going to shoot across to.
Which character trait did you feel made you the best player in the NFL?
Did you catch that, Mr. Culp?
I did not.
I think I heard it. It was kind of quiet. Which character trait you think helped him the most in the NFL?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I guess to rephrase that, they want to know which one of the 6 pillars was the strongest characteristic. And I would think responsibility would probably be high on the list. As I talked earlier about how responsibility in carrying out your assignment effectively and excellently, and then you gain the respect of your teammates and your opponents. So responsibility would be high on the list.
Thank you very much. And let's go back to Manor, and we'll just go ahead and go from a couple questions from each school, and that way we don't have to jump back and forth quite as much since we don't have as many schools tuned in here today as we thought we were. So Manor, go ahead and go ahead with a couple questions. Start with your first one.
Don't be shy. Come on. There you go.
Hi, my name is Michael. My question for you is, as a child,
What events in your life do you believe helped shape you into the man you are today?
And can you repeat that, Mr. Culp, too, so we can hear that?
I think the question was, what events in my life helped shape my character? And that's a great question. I'm an asthmatic. So being an asthmatic, I had to make certain adjustments in my activities athletically and just living life in general to participate in sports and also do well in the classroom. And another I would think would be being an African American, growing up in the '60s. There are certain experiences that were racially motivated, and I think that experience helped develop my character and demeanor. And then lastly, having two parents at home raising me in a biblical way, and still utilizing some of the characteristics that you're talking about and building character in general. So those are the three things I think.
And if I can interject before Manor goes into the next, so you brought up something, Mr. Culp, about the racism faced. For those of you that don't know, obviously Mr. Culp was played in the late '60s, much like our country. The National Football League and the professional football was going through a transitional period as well. The Chiefs actually have the distinction of being the first NFL team, first professional league team to have over half their roster with African Americans. And can you talk a little bit about that, playing in the '60s and some of the things that maybe have taken place that helped shape you into the person you are today?
Well, I think one of the main characteristics of playing in that era was one of responsibility, what I think would be high on the list, and secondly, tolerance and understanding that there are differences, and those differences shouldn't determine whether or not you're successful or not in life. And you talked about Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs, we had a middle linebacker. In fact, he was one of the first inside backers that was a man of color that played that position. I think the school of thought during that era was that certain athletes, minority athletes, that could play only certain positions like defensive line, offensive line, or cornerbacks. But that's changed now, and for the good, because now we have quarterbacks, we have all different positions that you're there because of your ability and your talent, and not because of the color of your skin.
And that middle linebacker you're referring to was just in here
Willie
last.
Lanier,
Was
yeah.
he was just Mr. Lanier was just in last week for our Black History Month program, so we just had him in. So, and for students, for those you don't realize, there were more and more African Americans playing during the '60s and into the '70s, but there was still this perception that African Americans couldn't play the so-called thinking positions like the quarterback, like the center, and then obviously kind of the quarterback of the defense, middle linebacker. And someone like Willie Lanier came in and really transformed that. And if you ever get a chance to talk to Willie Lanier, you would understand that he is one of the most cerebral players that you will ever meet, even today. I mean, the guy is just super intelligent when it comes to just the studying the game and understanding the physics of the game and momentum and leverage and all those sorts of things. And just to hear him dissect the game, it's pretty amazing. And I'm sure Mr. Culp can attest to some of those things. So let's go to Manor with your second question. Go ahead.
Hi. Teachers, please pardon this interruption. Please hold all your students. We are waiting for the program to get over, and then we will release. Please do not release until we ring the bell. So if you're out in the hall, please return back to class.
All right.
We have a lot of things happening today in Manor.
Oh, fantastic.
That's okay. I've once done one of these, and it was like a 5-minute PA announcement. So this is easy. So go ahead, Manor, with your next question.
Hi, my name is Joy, and my question is: being an African American, going off of all the racism and everything, what is your opinion on the controversy surrounding the N-word as a penalty in NFL games?
I don't think it should be used in any environment because of the history of the N-word and the implications of that. And I think it shows a insensitivity to an individual, a group of people.
Thank you very much. Let's go back to Alabama. Mountain Gap.
My name is Alvarado, and the question I have is, what is the most important difficult obstacle that you had to overcome?
The most difficult obstacle that I had to overcome was was the fact that I was asthmatic, and being asthmatic, it kind of affects how well you can breathe. And I was allergic to cut grass or dust, and it just the excessiveness of exercising. I was from Yuma, Arizona, and we played in the heat, and it was all of that contributed to my difficulty in breathing. So I had to manage that. In order to manage that, I had to take maybe more breaks than the other athletes on the field, and it helped me to continue to do that because I truly wanted to do that. I wanted to compete athletically. And also because I was competing athletically, it allowed me to miss some of the chores and responsibilities that I had at home. My parents, Octavia Rosetta Culp and Frank William Culp. My father was 50 years old when I was born. My mother was 40 years old. So they were older parents. And in fact, I was the first one that had an opportunity to move on, like many of you, and attend education from a higher perspective. And so that helped in the process.
Teachers and students. Teachers, please do not release any of your students until instructed to do so. Students, if you are in the halls at this time, please return back to your first period class. Again, students, you should not be in the hallways until released. Please return back to your first period class. Thank you.
This just makes the program more authentic. I love it. I love it. Mountain Gap, go ahead with another question.
I'm Priscilla, and my question is, what was the most courageous act you saw as an NFL player?
Well, would you please repeat the question?
Repeat it. Say it loud.
What was the most courageous act you saw as an NFL player?
What was the what now?
What was the most courageous act you saw as an NFL player?
The most outrageous.
Courageous.
Oh, courageous. Courageous.
It could be outrageous.
Yeah, courageous.
Sorry about the Southern accent down here.
In athletics, oftentimes you have to determine the difference between pain and injury. And so I think when you consider that and the individual playing, and maybe they shouldn't play, but yet they're played because of the fact that they want to, support the team and endeavors to win a contest. So I guess that would probably be the most significant situation when someone plays in pain, not injury, but it's pain, and then continue to do their job and do it effectively.
And in some cases, players like Jack Youngblood played with injuries, maybe even broken legs. So that does happen from time to time.
Students and teachers, students return back to your first period class. Teachers, we will not ring bells to go to second period until every student is in their first period class and out of the hallways. Please help us facilitate that. Students, all of you should return back to first period. We will not ring bells to second period and release students until all students are back in first period.
Okay. One thing I'd like to touch on, Mr. Culp, that a lot of times we come down to this in many cases, that let's talk about peer pressure for a second. And a lot of times we think of peer pressure as a negative thing. Someone tempting you to drink, someone tempting you to do drugs, someone tempting you to do this and that. But in many cases, what I found with our Hall of Famers is that there has been very positive peer pressure in their life to achieve more than what you may have thought you could achieve. Can you talk about that in your life, and maybe some of those folks that maybe saw stuff in you that you didn't?
I think peer pressure is very, very positive in the sense that you surround yourself with individuals that can make you better overall. And so if you're in an environment that friends or that conduct themselves in a way that's not favorable, then I think you should maybe interact and say, well, maybe you need to gather a different group of friends. And so from that perspective, I think peer pressure can be very positive rather than from a negative perspective.
And can you talk about some of those folks in your life that maybe helped shape you? Maybe it was a high school teacher, maybe it was a football coach, maybe it was obviously you talked about your importance of your parents as well.
Yeah. Well, I initially started playing football when I was a sophomore year. My brother was working there at the high school, and the coach at the time talked to him and wanted me to come out and visit and talk about the possibility of coming out and playing professional football, high school football. And I visited with him and told him about the responsibilities I had at home, and that my participation in football would take away the opportunity to do those things that I needed to do at home. But I was able to work out a pact with my older brother. So what he did, he worked out my responsibilities at home, and so enabled me to participate in football. And then and his name was Rosengarten was his name, was a high school coach there at Yuma High School. And then after he left the following year, a gentleman by the name of Frank Thomas. And Frank Thomas was a wonderful coach. In fact, he actually counseled me in our trips from practice to home, because there was oftentimes I was kind of like in the middle of whether or not I should continue my activities in high school because of my health and the responsibilities that I had at home.
At this time, all students should be in their classroom. Teachers, please make sure the kids are in the classrooms. I am going to walk the halls. If you are not in your classroom, then I will escort you to ISS. APs, I expect you to do the same. Thank you.
I tell you, this is a wonderful environment. And secondly, there was a coach. I participated in football and wrestling in high school, and there was a coach by the name of Pat Patterson and also Tom Daniels there at Yuma High School. And Pat was a kind of like a gymnastic coach, but he coached wrestling. And I was walking on the campus one day, and he said, Curley, he said, if you come out and participate in wrestling, I'll make you a state champ. And I said, well, I thought he was just blowing smoke, I said, well, I'll go out and we'll see. And so I went out to wrestle, and I had my bumps and bruises the first season, but thereafter I had an opportunity to excel, and we became a state championship a couple of years in a row. So athletics has been a big part of my life, and it shaped my character immensely.
And I don't know if you guys know, he went on to Arizona State, your national champion at Arizona State, right?
Right. I went on to Arizona State on a football scholarship, but the coach there by the name of Frank Thomas allowed me to participate in wrestling. A guy coached there was named Ted Bradyhoff. And Ted Bradyhoff really was a great wrestling coach. In fact, my junior year in college, I was in the best shape of my life. I was probably 265 pounds, and I felt good, and I could wrestle. And wrestling was a sport that required a lot of conditioning and endurance. And my asthma didn't affect me as much because I wasn't out in the elements. I was on a wrestling match. But he really allowed me to do a lot of cross-country work and a lot of gym work to prepare me for the nationals, and I was able to go there and do well.
All right, if Manor wants to go ahead with a couple questions, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Tyler.
Hey, Tyler.
And how do you feel the leadership roles on the football field and in the business world are similar?
Okay.
Can you repeat that, Mr.
Yeah,
Culp?
the question is, how are the leadership roles in business and in football field? To rephrase, how are the leadership roles in football and the business world similar? And I would say they're similar in the sense that that in decision making, you have to be trustworthiness, you have to be honest, and you have to conduct yourself in a way that is fair in the population that you're in. So the one of fairness, trustworthiness, and good fairness in your decision making.
Okay, go ahead with another one there, Manor.
Do you think that you would be as successful as you were then now with the way
Well, I think so.
Can you repeat that, Mr. Culp?
She was trying to make a contrast between success now, if I was coming out now, as opposed to back in the '60s when I started, I guess, the athletic path. And I would say yes to that. I said, yeah, now we have stronger, we have faster, they're more intelligent. You have the advent of internet, so you have all these various sources where you can get information and to help you along that path that you chose. So yes, I think both scenarios would be one that would be successful for me.
And I couldn't imagine with today's technology what Mr. Culp would have looked like physically. Because I don't know if you guys see some pictures of him. He's got a wrestling picture from Arizona State where he's like this. And when he talks about 260, we're not talking about a hefty 260. We're talking about a ripped, shredded, muscle-bound 260. So with today's technology, I think.
A little bit, Jerry.
I only the pictures don't lie. You know, they say that pictures don't lie. So he was a physical specimen, and you had a teammate that was a physical specimen as well, in the name of Bobby Bell, who was who was a physical.
Bobby was a great athlete. Yes, in
So
fact, Bobby Bell.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said, in fact, Bobby Bell was a super athlete. You know, he played outside linebacker. So in the sense of the fact that we had to stack defense there in Kansas City, and oftentimes we had to work together to achieve a particular assignment, and he was very helpful to me in trying to carry out those responsibilities.
Definitely. Let's go to Mountain Gap. Go with a couple questions for you guys.
Say it loud.
What do you consider the most important character trait for success in life?
The question is?
Say it loud. Look at
What do you consider the most important character trait for success in life?
What do you consider the most important character trait in life?
You know, that's a great question. I think when you look at trustworthiness, responsibility, respect, fairness, caring, and citizenship, at this stage in my life, I think citizenship will probably take precedence because I'll be 68 pretty soon, and I'm striving to be a good citizen in society. And I think it's very important for the youth of today that are going to be leaders of tomorrow, that it's important that this kind of interaction is important because it gives you a foundation that you can develop your own character. So, and then when it comes to those crises in your life where you gotta go either right or left, you have a foundation to analyze those circumstances so that you always make the right choices.
Tadaria, come on up and you can ask the next question.
Pardon me?
Introduce yourself and ask the question.
Hi, my name is Tadaria. What is the most serious injury you had as a player?
I didn't understand the question.
What is the most serious injury you had as a player?
What is the most serious injury that I've had as a player? Well, I've had an opportunity to play in the Professional Football League for 14 years, and I've gotten busted up thumbs. I have scoliosis. I have asthma, but to say that I think the injury, I ruptured my Achilles tendon when I played in Denver, and that was an injury that ended my professional career. So I would say that's probably the worst injury because it ended my career.
That just sounds painful. I'm sorry. I said that just sounds painful. Ugh.
Well, it was painful.
Yeah. So, Mr. Culp, if I can throw in a question here before we go back to Manor. As we talk about the people that surround you and had an influence on your life, can you talk to these students about how important it is that we allow these people, that we ask the questions if we need help, whether it's in school or whether it's in sports, whether it's in life, is that these people are in our lives. All of us have those people in our lives, whether it's our teachers, could be our parents, could be our brothers, could be sisters, could be our pastor, could be our youth leader, whoever it might be. But we still have to be willing to accept that help. Can you talk them through that a little bit?
Well, I think that's a good point. As I can reflect back to when I was a student in high school, and if I had difficulties in the classroom that maybe I didn't understand, say an algebra formulation, that I would go to the teacher and sit there maybe after class or before class to get that understanding so I can achieve that effectively. And then in life, it could be the priest, it could be the pastor of the church, it could be your parents. It could be a lot of people that are around you that help you to make you a better person. And you should utilize those avenues when necessary for success.
And yeah, you bring up a good point because there's so many times that I think, in athletics, we usually have no problem going to our coach and say, hey, coach, basketball coach, I'm having trouble with free throws. Okay, we're going to stay after practice to shoot free throws, and we'll do the necessary reps to improve. But for some reason in the classroom, we have this stumbling block that maybe we're perceived as dumb or stupid or not smart enough if we ask those questions. Hey, teacher, I'm having trouble with algebra, like you said, an algebra formulation or something like that. We kind of, we have a stumbling block there of asking questions when it's in the classroom I think in some cases people might think I'm dumb or something like that. But students, I can guarantee you that if there's 30 people in your classroom, probably 10 people in that classroom had the same question. They just weren't willing to ask it. And the other thing is you don't necessarily have to ask the question in front of the teacher as well, as you can go afterwards. I remember when I was in college, I had trouble in geology. I got a D on my first exam in geology, and I went into the professor afterwards and asked how I could study better for it. So it's a lifelong process of asking for help. Even today, my parents have been married for 40-something years, 46 years now. And I'm married with 2 kids. I've been married 9 years. I ask advice from them of how to be a better husband and how to be a better father to my kids. And so it never stops being willing to ask for that help. So let's go to Manor. Let's go to Manor with a couple questions.
Okay, my name is Lucia Anderson. My question is how did you deal with teammates that were I guess you could say rude, and teammates that slacked off and stuff like that, and teammates that didn't do what they needed to because they thought they were already high enough, so they weren't working as hard as the rest of the team? How did you deal with those?
That's a great question. As a player, I think we can only lead by example. So, but I think that's a coaching situation. In fact, that the expectations of a coach is for that given athlete to perform excellently, and when that individual athlete does not perform excellently, then they're probably replaced with someone that will. And so I think that's one element of it. And then the other side of it is your interaction with a teammate. If he's rude, if he's disrespectful, then I think it's important that you have a discussion, either one-on-one or as a team, bring up to the coach and you have a team meeting, and those elements are discussed, and we will not have that kind of behavior because of the structure of the environment.
And going along with that, before we go to the second question from Manor, Mr. Culp, can you talk about, because it kind of fits under trustworthiness, kind of fits under respect and responsibility. Can you talk about accountability, both from, when you talk about your teammates on the field, and during a game, but also you've been a business owner and the folks that you've surrounded yourselves with. How does accountability play its role on both, on the field with your teammates and in the work environment with your teammates?
Well, accountability is very important, and accountability comes into play when you perform at a level that's acceptable to your teammates and to actually taking care of business at hand. And so it's just one of those things where it's your physical makeup, and you want to do the best that you can be, and when you in doing the best that you can be, you're accountable, and you get the respect of your teammates because of this excellence in your performance.
And would you say that same thing has helped shape your business model as well?
Absolutely. In the business world, you have a structure that you try to maintain for your employees, and you want them to conduct themselves in a certain manner when they interact with the public, because the public are the ones that actually pay a particular fees for your services. So you wanted them to conduct themselves that's characteristically appropriate.
Great, thank you very much. Go ahead, Manor, with your next question. If you can just speak up a little louder so we can hear a little better, or Mr. Culp, if you can repeat it.
As far as your athletic career and your business career, if you could go back and change anything, what would it be?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think often when you look back, there may be a crossroad in your life where say, well, maybe I would have did something a little differently, or maybe I would have kept the same path. And I've been very fortunate. I've been very blessed to have an opportunity to play in the National Football League for 14 years. I've had a very successful business environment. And so I think I'm pretty pleased. There are a few things that maybe I would change. Probably when I got drafted by the Denver Broncos, but I didn't have any real control over that because the draft is structured in such a way that the team has basically that kind of control. And when Lou Saban, the coach in Denver, traded me to Kansas City, that was a real sad time for me because I knew that I was a good athlete because I was drafted high in the draft, the first guy picked in the second round. So I knew I had athletic ability, and I played in the college All-Star game in Everson that year, and so I saw how other athletes played and their abilities, and I knew my abilities matched up with their abilities. So it was just a situation there in Denver that it wasn't a good fit. But in Kansas City, that fit was enhanced by the fact that Hank started that stack defense and allowed me to get down inside and do what I like to do on the football field.
Thank you very much, Manor. We're going to shoot back to Alabama. Mountain Gap, go ahead with a couple questions there.
My name is Jayla, and my question is, who is the best football player you have played against?
Wow, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of great football players. Many of them are Hall of Famers like myself. When I think about the best, there are quite a few. Because we're professionals, and as being a professional, you wouldn't be on the team unless you could, do your job and do it well. So, but from a offensive lineman perspective, there's one guy I think probably would be up there, a guy named John Little, a guy named Hannah was one, and maybe a guy named Walt Sweeney that I played against in San Diego. So those offensive linemen. Then at center, when I played the 3-4 defense in Houston, there was a guy by the name of Mike Webster that played with Pittsburgh. We'd always have those battles with Pittsburgh. In fact, we had 2 AFL championship games against Pittsburgh, and Mike Webster was the center, and he was a good player. So I think those individuals probably would rank up there high.
And I like that question because we can go a different route with that as well. Is that that when you think about obstacles, whether it's a center on the field or whether it's an obstacle in life, what's your approach of how to approach that situation? You going in that you're going to have this feat of you need to overcome Mike Webster,
Well, it has to do with study time. Okay, you watch the films. And you try to pay close attention to formations and try to pick up any little key that you might get either from their stance or maybe eye contact or just a lot of things and you watch that and then you try to apply that in a game situation to help you do what you need to do on the football field.
And you hear that, students, is study time, preparation, and that goes in all elements of life. I always said that, students want to be, I could ask you to raise your hands right now who wants to be an NFL star, and almost everyone would probably raise their hand. But I can guarantee you if the students want to be that star on Sunday or Monday night, but if they saw the work that was put in from Monday through Saturday to get to there, they may reconsider because there's a lot of work and a lot of prep time put in for that. So preparation, whether it's for a game, whether it's for an opponent, whether it's for a test, whether it's for a project, whatever it might be, preparation is key because then you walk into things confident. You walk into that knowing, I'm as prepared as I can be. It's not always going to go your way. Sometimes you might get beat that game. You might not get an A on the test that time, but if you take that approach that Mr. Culp has with the preparation and study time, more often than not, you're going to win that battle. I can guarantee that, whether it's on the football field or in life. Go ahead, Mountain Gap. Do you have another question?
My name is Matthew Moore, and what is the best play you have had?
What's the question?
What is the best play you have had?
Oh, the best play. Well, the most rewarding play for me would be when I had an opportunity to pick up a fumble. I think it was when Houston Oilers were playing San Diego in a game. There was a fumble. I was able to pick up the ball, and initially I was going in the wrong direction, and and my teammate Elvin Bethea said, "Hey, you're going the wrong direction," and so I whipped it around and stumbled into the end zone. So that would probably be the most memorable play for me, because that's the only touchdown I've ever had in my football career. And then in high school, I was primarily a defensive lineman, but there was a game. I think this was a homecoming game, and Coach Frank Thomas, a guy by the name of Comet, I think his name was. He was a fullback. He was injured, and so Coach came to me and said, "Curley, do you want to play fullback?" And being a defensive lineman, they always want to carry the mail. Put that football under your arm there and go with it. And so I said, okay. And so, but I tell you, it was something. I enjoyed it, but I was a little top heavy. Only thing I had to do was hit me around by the knees and ankles, and I just fall right over. But those probably were the two situations that was very exciting for me.
Thank you very much. Let's go back to Manor.
What was your greatest hurdle in life?
Can you repeat that?
What was my greatest hurdle in life? Athletically, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that I was asthmatic and dealing with that and on an ongoing basis on the football field and in my regular activities would probably be the most significant.
Let's go with another one, Manor.
When was it that you knew that you made it? Like you had come to where you wanted to be?
Well, that's a great question. Made it. I like to go back to when it all started in high school. In high school, because of my involvement in athletics, because of the fact that I did well academically, I had an opportunity to go to college, even on an academic scholarship. But due to the fact that I was big in stature and did okay in athletics, I received an athletic scholarship. And, I never have felt that I've made it. I've having great opportunities in my life, and that continues to happen with me. And I think a lot of that is contributed to my parents. They raised me well, and the support I had from family, friends, and organizations that when I needed help, they were there to assist me and direct me in the right path. And like you all are studying this thing about character and how these 6 pillars help you to develop character. And I think when you come to crossroads in your life, when you're making decisions, that you can utilize these 6 characteristics to help you make a better decision.
And go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm taking notes. Just so you students know, I take notes throughout programs. Learning doesn't stop in the K to 12 environment. It goes on. I'm 36 years old. I've been at the Hall of Fame it's almost 15 years now. In May, I've been here, and it doesn't stop. So I take notes throughout the programs because there's things I can apply to my life. And I like that quote. Is character helps when you come at crossroads in life, and that's a good. That's a good words to maybe even hang up on your that's poster board material there for you guys to hang up at your school. But let's go back to Mountain Gap.
Go ahead.
Have you ever wanted to coach football?
Have I ever wanted to coach the game of football? Yes. When I first got out of professional football, I thought that that's what I wanted to do because I was pretty good at it, but coaching football is actually a teacher. You're teaching the game, and it's very important that you have certain skills that you can convey to athletes to get the best out of them. So I wanted to do that, and in fact I pursued that initially, but it just didn't work out for me.
Go ahead, Mountain Gap, if you have another one. And that's working out very well, Mountain Gap. We can hear those loud and clear by coming up close to that microphone.
What was a fulfilling goal you've had in life?
The most fulfilling?
Yes, the most fulfilling
Well, the question was, what's the most fulfilling
goal
role?
you had in life.
Again, please.
Most fulfilling role that you've had in
Most
life.
fulfilling role. Uh, wow. In the athletics or in life? Want to zoom in? I assume that you're talking about athletics, or you're talking about in
Let's go
life.
in life. Let's go in life.
Okay. Being a good father and raising my children in a way that they, when they come to crossroads in their lives, that they can make the right decisions, probably would be the most.
Great. We're going to go just a moment here back to Manor to close up the program. I see we got about looks like about 5 minutes left, and we'll go to a couple more questions from Manor. But let me ask if I can throw in a question here, Mr. Culp. Is how do you define success? Because a lot of times we see success by how it's portrayed in the movies, how it's portrayed on the big screens and whatnot. How do you define success in life?
Well, success is to be successful. There's a lot of characteristics that come into play, but I think if you're doing something, everybody has God-given talents, and I think it's very important that you identify those particular talents that you have, because everybody's different. And in life, we're going to have opportunities to earn different levels of income, different levels of education, but we all need to maybe focus in on what's special about me and what I can do as a person to better myself and society. Because everybody's not going to be able to play professional football. But there's other things, there's teachers, there's business people like plumbers, electricians, nurses, doctors, and all those various occupations. And I think in this room, there are going to be many of you that have those chosen opportunities.
Yeah, and students, I just want you to realize too, I mean, just because you're prepared doesn't mean you're necessarily, sometimes people define success by the end result, meaning that, you were able to buy a big house, or you got an A on the test, or you won a Super Bowl, or you made it in the Hall of Fame. And a lot of times that success is not necessarily the end result, but it's the journey that you're taking, and it's the hard work, and it's the perseverance, and it's all the things that we're talking about here that Mr. Culp's talking about here today. So let's go back for a couple of last questions to close out the program from our friends there at Manor ISD or Manor High School. Go ahead.
Okay. What is a motto that you tell yourself or that you tell your family that helps you guys get through the day?
If you can repeat that.
Oh, she has the question is, what motto that I tell myself or my family? I think by the golden rule would be probably one. Do unto others as you have them do unto you would be a great motto.
And go ahead with the next one.
Was there ever a point in time where you doubted yourself, and if so, how did you overcome that fear?
That's a great question.
That is a great question.
I remember when this has nothing to do with athletics. This has something to do when I was in high school, and I was in a speech class. And growing up, I was very shy, very reluctant to get up in front of anybody to talk about anything, And I was, you get those feelings in your stomach, the nervousness, and just the I guess insecurity in the fact that you had to get up and talk to your class. And to alleviate that fear is just you have to get on and do it. Get up and do it, and then fight through that and learn through that process. We're not perfect. We're all developing as individuals. Even today, I believe in lifelong learning. So this is something that allows you to meet those challenges head on. And due to the fact you have a foundation that's been put in place, and I think a good foundation is the characters, the 6 pillars that you've studied to help you to achieve those successes in life.
And Mr. Culp, I mean, I'm looking down the list of stuff that I've jotted down about you, especially the crossroads, living on the golden rule, talking about some obstacles that you faced with, especially with your asthmatics and with your asthma. You know, I asked students what's more important, winning versus character, and obviously you would choose character. Whether it's something you'd like to reiterate to stress to students, or whether it's something maybe we haven't touched on, is there anything to close out the program that you would like to share with these students?
Well, I think that it's very important that as a student, I'm trying to reflect back when I was a student in high school. You know, a lot of things going to be coming up in your life, but it's important to have individuals. It could be family, it could be someone in a church, it could be maybe a friend that kind of help you and guide you. So when it's time to make those decisions, you make the right decisions. You know, like when I was in high school, there was a group of people that dealt in activities that I knew wasn't going to be helpful for me for my life that day or the future. So I kind of pulled away from those individuals because those activities were not helpful for me. So you want to surround yourself with people that think like you. They want to achieve things in life. They want to do something in life. And I think that's where the peer pressure becomes a very positive influence in your schema when it comes to building character.
Most definitely, most definitely. Students, if you could unmute your microphones and join me, giving a warm round of applause to Pro Football Hall of Famer, Mr. Curley Culp.